The blood in Tess's veins turned cold as she read and reread the note.
What does this mean? Who will be next? Next as in next after Dade and Sherry and Joey? As in, look what happened to them?
Tess slid down onto the floor, staring at the paper in her hand. Was it some kind of a joke? But she didn't know anyone with such a bizarre sense of humor. Tess stood up, keeping her eyes away from the blackness of the windows. She suddenly realized that the person who had written the poem could be watching her right now.
I shouldn't stay here tonight. I could go to my dad's. I'd be safe there, but miserable. He'd start right in again with all that stuff about Shelley, or I could call Sam. He'd come and stay with me. Oh, yeah, sure. I'm so tense I'd probably fall right into his arms. That's all I need.
Tess picked up the phone and dialed her father's number, letting it ring 8 or 9 times. No answer. Why wasn't Guy Joe home, she thought. Maybe Trudy had talked him into giving her a ride home. Trudy didn't have a curfew, and her parents were always out socializing, so who knew when Guy Joe would call it a night?
If I have to spend the night alone, I'd rather spend it here, in my own house. Anyway, the stupid note was probably just a rotten joke.
Tess began locking all the windows and doors. Then she pushed the heavy oak table in front of the French doors. She made her way through the condo, flipping on light switches as she went. She loved the large and airy rooms, decorated by Shelley in fresh light colors, with plants hanging down in wicker baskets. This home was prettier, warmer, and cozier than her father's mansion. But as she went from room to room, Tess suddenly found herself wondering how she would defend herself if someone broke in. She picked up a heavy brass poker from beside the fireplace and placed it beside her on the large couch. She put a quilt over her legs and turned on the television for company, resolving to stay alert till daylight. But the horror of the night had exhausted her, and she closed her eyes. When Tess finally gave way to sleep, every light in the house was still blazing brightly. Tess woke early with sunlight streaming through the living room window. When the events of the night before flooded into her mind, she decided to drive straight down to the police station.
Chief Chalmers isn't here on Sundays. His day of rest. Not today, though. Right now, he's seeing to that mess over there at the boardwalk.
Oh, I need some help. Will you read this?
What is this? You got a problem, little lady? You missing a boyfriend?
I'm not little, and my problem isn't a boy, it's that note. Someone slid it under my door last night. Well, could you look at it, please?
This doesn't make sense. Looks like a kid's handwriting to me. Written in crayon, right?
Magic marker. And it wasn't written by a kid. Don't you recognize those names?
Yeah, sure. They're the kids that were hurt last night. Terrible accident.
Yeah, but doesn't that note sound like it wasn't an accident? Isn't it a warning that there might be other accidents?
Could be, I guess. Could be a joke. Someone trying to scare you. You have a fight with your boyfriend lately?
My boyfriend would never write a crazy note like this.
Look, miss, Chief Chalmers has his hands full right now, but as soon as he comes in, I'll give him this. If there's anything connecting this note with the crash, he'll probably call you, okay?
Well, could I have my note back, please?
I'd better keep it, miss. We'll follow up on this, I promise you.
Tess watched him put the note in the drawer and knew he wouldn't do anything about it. Later, she met Gina at the ice cream shop.
It's not that I don't believe there was a note, Tess. It's just that it has to be a joke. A really mean one, but a joke. I hate to see you get all upset over it.
Gina, doesn't it sound to you like it means the crash was no accident?
Oh, let's wait and see what the police say, okay? Come on, relax. Finish your chunky monkey ice cream. By the way, I asked my dad about any other accidents at the boardwalk. He hates talking about stuff like that. But he did say that some guy committed suicide in the funhouse a long time ago. He hung himself.
Oh, yuck. No kidding. No wonder I was never crazy about that place. Who was it?
Daddy wouldn't say.
I wonder why we never heard about it before.
Happened before we were born.
Oh.
I guess it's not the kind of thing people like to talk about.
No, I guess not.
Hey, don't get uptight about the note. Let's wait and see what Chief Chalmers comes up with.
Just don't be surprised if it turns out I'm right. And I am going to say I told you so.
Sure you will. Look, Why not stay at my house tonight? No school tomorrow, did you know? It's closed out of respect for Dade.
Tess gratefully accepted Gina's offer to stay overnight. She knew Gina's house was packed to the roof with kids and toys and pets, so it would be safe and relaxing. That evening at the Jambonis, nobody even mentioned the Devil's Elbow. But lying in her bed that night, Tess couldn't get to sleep. Those vivid purple words in magic marker kept dancing in front of her eyes.
Who will be next? It could be you. It could be you. It could be you. It could be you. It could be you.
I saw her. She went to the police with my poem. They laughed at her, I bet. Have to hand it to her, though. She stayed right there in the condo. With all the lights on. Then last night she slept at the Jambonis. Okay by me, there's plenty of time. After all, Lila O'Hare's journal was there a long time before I read it. Lila left those blank pages in her diary after she and Tully lost the boardwalk. But then she began writing again.
My Tully is gone. People are saying that what he did was cowardly, but Tully was no coward. He did it for me and the baby. He didn't know, that poor, sweet man, that the insurance company wouldn't pay off in his suicide case. How am I going to take care of our baby when it comes?
The man was dead? I bet those guys who took the boardwalk from him didn't even feel guilty. My dad wouldn't. He'd say, look, the guy couldn't hack it. Is it my fault? Well, yes, actually. It could have been. If my father had been in on that deal. I hoped he hadn't, but look, the journal was in this trunk, in this attic, in this house. I read on.
Buddy came to see me. He said I shouldn't worry. He'd take care of everything. Said they all felt guilty about buying the boardwalk. They never thought it would drive him to suicide. They didn't buy it. They stole it. But I have to let Buddy help me. I have no choice.
I couldn't read anymore right then. I had these tiny little hammers tattooing the inside of my skull.
As Tess was leaving the Jambonis' house the next day, Gina gave her a present.
Come on, Trilby, come on. Come on, here, Trilby, come on, come on. Here you go. Here, Tess.
Oh.
Take Trilby for company. She's our most affectionate cat. She loves to be petted. You can keep her until Shelley gets back.
Oh, thanks, Gina. She's beautiful. Hello. I love cats. Is she trained as an attack cat?
Oh, sure. She's a...
Tess put Trilby on her lap. She purred all the way home. When she got there, Tess went to her room and changed into her jeans and a yellow sweatshirt. Suddenly, the phone rang.
Hello?
Hi again, Tess. Listen, you probably won't be crazy about this idea, but my dad asked me this morning if I could get a bunch of kids together to go to the boardwalk. Just to show people that it's safe, you know. Beak and Sam are coming, and I think Guy Joe. Trudy might come, and Candace, too.
Oh, Gina, I don't want to go down there. Why can't we do something else?
Come on, Tess. My dad hardly ever asks me for anything. Can't you come with me?
Tess wanted to help. Gina's father had always been very kind to her, but she didn't want to go near the boardwalk. She knew that criminals often returned to the scene of their crime. Still, she couldn't say that to Gina.
Okay, I'll come.
Oh, great. Listen, we'll just hang around in the funhouse, okay? No rides, not when you're so uptight. Could you pick me up?
Yeah, sure. The funhouse has no windows, so, well, I won't be able to see the Devil's Elbow. Maybe it won't be so grim.
If it was, it'd have to be called the Grim House, and nobody would go, and we'd all be poor.
Tess hung up. Then she remembered she hadn't asked Gina if her father had heard from Chalmers about the investigation. She didn't want to ask her own father. He'd only make fun of her fears if she told him about the note. She'd rather talk to her friends about it. But when they all met and she asked them, nobody in the group knew anything about the investigation. except that the roller coaster was roped off with signs saying closed for repairs, and hardly anyone was about on the boardwalk. They all headed for the funhouse, with Gina, cheerful as always in her red shorts and flowered shirt, leading the way. Tess knew that Gina was trying to keep everyone's mind off the crash, but it didn't help. The screams of the victims still echoed in Tess's head. She kept looking over her shoulder. She had the strange feeling that someone was watching her. The funhouse was a long, narrow tunnel built in an L shape. The foot of the L was built out over the beach and was supported by wooden stilts. The dark wooden structure contained several small balconies which separated one chamber from another. When people reached the balconies, they could relax and take in the scenery before going on to the next challenge. Tess survived the tossing and tilting of the first tunnel, then stopped on one of these balconies to let her stomach settle down. Gina, Trudy, and Candace went on to the third chamber, a nylon-padded tunnel with a floor of heavy metal chain links. On the balcony, Tess breathed in the cool, salty air of the sea. But she felt uneasy. She couldn't stop thinking of the man who had committed suicide in the funhouse long ago. Tess was lost in thought when Guy Joe came up beside her.
Are you sick, Tess?
Mm-mm. I'm just catching my breath.
Oh.
You go ahead with the others.
Hey, Beak's still back there clowning around as usual. He got hung up on the tilting tunnel. Sam's gone back to give him a hand.
Guy Joe? Do you think the crash was an accident? Now tell the truth.
Oh, who knows? Anything's possible, right? The question is, why would someone do something so awful?
Yeah.
Just then, Sam and Beak caught up with them, and they all headed back inside. Tess always found that the hardest part of the funhouse for her was the chamber with no solid floor. All it had was a cluster of whirling metal saucers. There was nothing to grasp onto for balance except folds of black nylon on the walls. Tess had discovered that the only way she could make it across this chamber was by lowering herself to a sitting position and sliding from saucer to saucer on her backside. It took longer, and it seriously dented her dignity, but it worked. Tess had started to do this when she realized that she was tired of feeling like a fool, tired of trying to keep her balance on moving boards, chains, and circles. She just wanted to go home. She decided then not to use the steps down from the funhouse, but to get out the quickest way possible, by sliding down the steep metal chute that led directly to the beach. She landed at the bottom, her legs sprawled in the sand. Trudy, Candace, and Gina were already there, watching the surf pounding on the shore. Beak, Sam, and Guy Joe followed Tess down the chute.
Listen, guys, I'm going to split.
Oh, not already, Tess.
Yeah, Gina, my head is cracking right down the middle. I need to sleep. Oh, hey, wait, my keys are gone. I put my key case in my back pocket so I wouldn't have to lug my purse around with me.
Sure?
Oh, no, it must have fallen out in the fun house. Oh, Gina, my stomach can't handle that place again.
I'll go. It's your red leather key case, right?
Uh-huh.
The one with your initials on it?
You'll never find it in there, Gina. Get maintenance to look for it.
Why doesn't Tess go herself? They're her keys.
We'll all go.
Don't be silly, Sam. I'll go and I'll be right back. I know the place like the back of my hand.
Hey, where's Gina going?
To find Tess's car keys.
Why does she have to look for him?
Well, for heaven's sakes, Doss, I'll go, okay? I'll go.
Tess hated to go into the funhouse again, but after all, they were her keys, and she couldn't let Gina search for them alone. She entered the rolling wooden walkway and clutched at the padded walls.
Gina? Gina?
I'm in here, Tess, but I can't find...
Gina? Gina, where are you?
Stumbling along the wooden walkways, Tess came to the chamber with the floor of metal saucers. They were separated by small spaces through which you could see the hard sand of the beach far below. The tiny spaces provided no danger, unless any of the large round circles was missing. And right now, one was. Tess couldn't believe it. There was a large gap in the flooring. She edged over and looked down. Below her, on the sand, she could see a small green plastic pail left by a careless child. Beside it, her left leg sticking out at a sickening angle, her face twisted in agony, was Gina.